There's a moment in every life when the world you've built for years starts crumbling, quietly at first, then all at once. For Tyler, it happened on a gray San Francisco morning, sunlight slanting through the endless glass windows of Meta's open office, his laptop screen awash in Slack messages and Jira tickets. Around him, the buzz of keyboards and conversations was relentless. His hands shook. The email sat at the top of his inbox, subject line, promotion results, March cycle. For a third time in 2 years, the answer was no. He heard Madison's voice before he saw her, cutting through the haze. Ty, hey, are you... Tyler blinked, the edges of his vision going blurry. Someone's laughter from a nearby desk sounded distorted, the fluorescent lights flickering overhead. His heart pounded like it was trying to escape his chest, breaths coming too quick, too shallow. He tried to stand, but his legs buckled. Suddenly, everything was too bright, too loud. His knees hit the carpet. Tyler, hey! Madison's voice turned sharp. She was at his side, dropping to the floor as concerned faces loomed over them. The room spun, his pulse echoing in his ears, panic swelling in his chest. There was a strange, detached clarity. This is happening right now, to me. The world faded in and out. Later, in a sterile white clinic, a doctor in a blue coat delivered the verdict. You're showing classic symptoms of burnout syndrome, panic attacks, chronic stress, trouble sleeping. If you don't step back now, you're looking at severe depression. Tyler stared at his hands, still trembling, feeling the weight of the words settle over him like wet concrete. His life had been reduced to lines of code and empty promises, just another cog in the machine. That night, he sat on his narrow balcony, city lights shimmering below, the Golden Gate barely visible through the fog. Madison brought over cheap takeout, the two of them picking at lukewarm noodles, not really eating. She watched him with eyes that knew too much. Ty, we've been killing ourselves for years. For what? To run in circles, chasing promotions, working weekends. This can't be it. This can't be all there is. He wanted to argue, to say something hopeful, but the words died in his throat. The silence stretched. Eventually Madison spoke again, voice barely above a whisper. I'm scared, Ty. What if we're wasting our prime years on this rat race? And one day, we just wake up old, wondering where it all went. The question lingered, haunting. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he lay on his bed, scrolling through Zillow on his phone, half a world away from his own life, falling down a rabbit hole of fantasy. Ranches in Wyoming, cabins in Oregon, acreages with faded red barns, none of them real possibilities. Until one listing stopped him cold. Willow Creek Ranch, Montana. 70 acres. Weathered farmhouse, falling down fences, the remnants of an old barn. $180,000. A fraction of the cost of anything in the Bay Area. It was almost funny. At 2 a.m., the world soft and silent, dreams seemed possible again. He texted Madison a screenshot, half expecting her to ignore it. Instead, his phone buzzed moments later. I'm in. Screw it. What are we waiting for? The next morning, the idea became a plan. Over coffee at a crowded cafe, both exhausted but a little giddy, they did the math. If they pooled their 401ks and cleaned out their savings, it was just enough to cover the down, payment, and bare-bones renovations. Madison called it their YOLO moment. They'd laughed, but there was an edge of desperation in it, a fear that maybe this was the last chance they'd get to change course before the corporate world swallowed them whole. Their families didn't understand. Tyler's father called it reckless. You're throwing away your future for a pipe dream. Madison's older sister sent her long emails with real estate stats and horror stories about rural living. But Tyler and Madison clung to the hope, thin and stubborn, that life could be more than endless code reviews and marketing sprints. They signed the papers, quit their jobs, packed up their lives in cardboard boxes, shipped the essentials, sold the rest on Craigslist. The Bay Area faded in the rearview mirror, replaced by long highways, endless sky, mountains sharp against the horizon. Somewhere in Nevada, a thunderstorm chased them for miles, lightning dancing across the desert, rain pounding the windshield so hard they had to pull over. Madison turned to him, hair plastered to her forehead, and grinned. I haven't felt this alive in years. By the time they reached Montana, every muscle ached, nerves frayed by days of travel. Willow Creek Ranch greeted them with silence and the sigh of wind through tall grass. The farmhouse leaned a little, paint peeling from the porch, windows clouded with dust. Fences sagged. Beyond, fields rolled out to the tree line, wild and untamed. It was nothing like the digital nomad paradise they'd imagined, but something about it felt honest, a place stripped down to bone and truth. That first night, the stars were so bright it hurt to look at them. Madison found an old guitar in a closet, strummed broken chords, while Tyler built a fire in the wood stove, cursing at the stubborn flu. They sat in the half-dark, faces lit by orange flame, and for a moment hope flickered. But beneath the excitement, fear coiled. The unknown pressed in from all sides: money, work, survival. Tyler lay awake, listening to the wind rattle the windows, wondering if they'd made the biggest mistake of their lives. Yet, when dawn crept over the fields, painting everything gold, he stepped outside and breathed deep, the cold, clean air filling his lungs. Madison joined him, coffee steaming in her hands. We did it, she said softly. Her words hung there, fragile and brave. Tyler nodded, eyes on the horizon, heartbeat steady for the first time in months. They didn't know it yet, but this broken ranch would test them, break them, and maybe, just maybe, save them. The Montana sun rose early, flooding Willow Creek Ranch with a pale, relentless light. On that first morning, Tyler and Madison stood side by side in the weed-choked front yard, coffee mugs warming their hands, hearts pounding with excitement and dread. The mountains loomed to the west, their blue shadows promising both beauty and remoteness. It all looked so perfect from the porch: wildflowers in the grass, the gentle slope down to the old barn, morning mist curling along the creek bed. But as the hours passed, the Instagram-worthy landscape began to lose its magic. The first sign was the silence. No phone notifications, no Wi-Fi, just the distant call of a hawk and the occasional groan of the house settling on its ancient foundations. Tyler spent half an hour walking around, waving his phone in the air, hoping to catch a stray bar of service. Nothing. Madison laughed at first, then frowned, realizing she couldn't even post a story to tell friends back home that she'd made it. This is going to be rough. Reality settled in quickly. The kitchen sink didn't work. When Tyler tried to turn on the tap, nothing came out but a gurgle and a cough. The bathroom, even worse. The pipes rattled but refused to yield water. A sour smell hung in the air. Madison poked her head into the laundry room, only to leap back with a yelp as a fat raccoon darted out from behind the dryer, knocking over a can of old paint. Tyler tried to chase it out the back door, but the animal slipped away with a sneer, as if to say, "Good luck, city boys." They made a to-do list that stretched across 2 pages: fix the plumbing, clean out the barn, patch the roof, mow the fields, set up a workspace. They called a local contractor, a man named Jerry, who promised to come by sometime next week to give an estimate. Madison's laptop battery died by noon, and Tyler's phone became a glorified flashlight. As the sun reached its peak, the ranch's true state revealed itself. Windows rattled in their frames. The paint peeled off in flakes if you touched it. Every step in the upstairs hallway brought a chorus of creaks. When Tyler opened the basement door, a rush of cool, musty air greeted him. He hesitated, then flicked on the bare bulb, its light barely cutting the gloom. The steps groaned under his weight. The basement felt ancient. The air was thick with dust and memories. In one corner, a pile of yellowed newspapers and broken chairs. On a sagging workbench, a rusty toolbox, its contents scattered and forgotten. But what caught Tyler's eye was an old leather-bound journal. Wedged between 2 empty mason jars, the name on the cover was faded, but he could just make it out: Buck Morrison. Curiosity prickled. Tyler picked up the journal, running his fingers over the cracked leather. He carried it upstairs, where Madison was wrestling with a spider the size of her hand in the pantry. "Look what I found," he said, handing her the book. She opened it, flipping through pages filled with neat, looping script. They sat on the porch steps and read together. Buck's words painted a stark picture: years of hardship, endless droughts, and the struggle to keep the ranch afloat. One entry detailed a storm that wiped out half the herd. Another, a season when hay prices skyrocketed and Buck nearly lost the property. But mixed in with the stories of struggle were flashes of hope, descriptions of horses that helped him through the worst nights, moments when a sunrise or a gentle nuzzle from a mare made it all bearable. Near the end, a line leapt out at them. "These horses saved my soul. Don't let them down." Madison closed the journal, her hands trembling. Do you think any of them are still here?" Tyler shrugged. They hadn't even looked in the barn yet. They stood in the afternoon heat, hearts pounding, and walked across the overgrown yard. The barn was a red giant, its doors hanging askew, faded paint peeling. Tyler pushed one door open, and the heavy wood groaned, sunlight slanting through gaps in the walls. The smell hit them first: old hay, dust, manure, and something else, the living, breathing warmth of animals. Inside, 8 horses stood in the dim light, heads lifting in unison, eyes wide and wary. Their coats were shaggy, ribs showing through. A few stamped their hooves, uneasy. Madison counted quickly. 8. One, larger and more imposing than the rest, stood at the far end, his coat a deep, stormy gray, a lightning bolt-shaped white streak down his forehead. "Thunder," Tyler whispered, recognizing the horse from a faded photo in Buck's journal. The others shifted, ears flicking, watching with suspicion. Madison stepped forward slowly, hands open. The horses flinched but didn't bolt. The silence was heavy. Madison's breath caught in her throat. She knelt, speaking softly. "Hey there. It's okay. We're here to help." Her voice trembled, more hope than certainty. Thunder snorted, eyes watching her every move, muscles tense. Tyler scanned the barn. Empty water troughs, broken fences, moldy hay. No wonder they looked half-starved. Reality slammed into them. The Instagram dream was gone. This wasn't a glamping paradise, but a rescue mission. Madison pulled out her phone, fingers moving on instinct, only to remember there was no service, no way to Google what to do next. Tyler's mind raced. Horses needed water, food, vet care. He tried to remember the emergency numbers for the local veterinarian, but all he could do was scribble a note and hope someone in town could help. They made a plan, working side by side. Madison found an old garden hose, dragged it to the creek, filled the water troughs one slow bucket at a time. Tyler tossed what little edible hay he could find into the stalls, promising himself they'd buy more in the morning. The horses ate eagerly, hunger overriding their fear. That night, Tyler lay awake, the numbers spinning in his mind. The local vet visited the next day, a brisk woman named Dr. Keller. She examined each horse with quiet efficiency, her brow furrowed. "Most of them are old," she said. "Some in pretty rough shape. Thunder's a legend around here, former rodeo champion. But he's got arthritis in his hocks, needs medication, proper feed." She handed them a printed estimate. $3,000 per month, at least, if they wanted to keep all 8 horses healthy. Tyler's stomach dropped. Madison stared at the paper in disbelief. The fantasy of a peaceful rural escape crumbled in the face of hard numbers. Madison slumped on the porch steps, the journal in her lap. "We're not ready for this. Not even close. We can't just let them go," Tyler replied. "Buck trusted us somehow, even from the grave." Madison bit her lip, tears glimmering in her eyes. "Maybe we made a huge mistake." But as the sun dipped below the horizon, Thunder approached the fence, stood silently as the sky turned orange and purple. He stared at Tyler, something ancient and wise in his eyes. Tyler reached out, hand trembling. Thunder didn't pull away. For a brief moment, hope returned, fragile, battered, but real. Behind them, the ranch was still a mess. The plumbing broken, the barn sagging, the bank account shrinking by the minute. But in that fading light, with the journal in her lap, and Thunder's breath soft and steady, Madison found herself daring to believe that maybe, just maybe, this broken place could be healed, and that they could be, too. The night was quiet. The wind rustled the grass, the horses settled, and somewhere in the darkness, a coyote called. Tyler and Madison leaned against the porch railing, shoulders touching. "Tomorrow, we call the contractor," Madison said. "And the feed store, and—" She trailed off, exhaustion in every line of her body. Tyler nodded, watching Thunder disappear into the shadows of the barn. "We're still here," he said softly. That has to count for something. The stars flickered above, silent witnesses to their first full day as ranchers. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new disappointments. But tonight, they allowed themselves to hope. Just a little, just enough. The Montana summer sun rose with an intensity Tyler and Madison hadn't expected. It cut through the thin curtains, waking them before 6, setting the stage for their first real day as ranchers. They tumbled out of bed, muscles aching from the previous day's work, clothes still smelling faintly of hay and dust. Tyler tried to smile as he handed Madison a mug of coffee, but the nerves in his stomach twisted tight. The morning was so quiet, it felt fragile, like a single wrong step could shatter it. They had barely finished their coffee when a battered old Ford pickup rumbled up the gravel drive. An older man stepped out, his frame tall and lean, his face weathered from decades in the sun. He wore a faded Stetson and a flannel shirt that had seen better days. The man paused at the gate, eyed the city plates on their car, then shook his head as if he already knew the story. "Morning," he called, voice rough but not unfriendly. "You folks the new owners? Name's Earl Thompson. I ranch the next section over, or used to till my knees gave out." Tyler managed a smile, extended his hand. "Tyler, this is Madison. We just got in from California." Earl snorted, giving them both a once-over. "Well, you picked a hell of a time to play cowboy, that's for sure." The words stung, though Tyler knew Earl meant nothing by them. Madison jumped in, trying to bridge the gap. "We're here to give it our best shot, sir. Though, to be honest, we could use all the advice we can get." Earl grunted. "Advice is cheap. Experience costs a lot more." He tipped his hat and turned to leave, then paused, glancing at the barn. "I heard Buck passed on. Good man. Shame about how things went here. You two got your work cut out for you." The old man climbed back in his truck and drove off, leaving a cloud of dust and a sense of warning hanging in the air. Tyler watched him go, trying to shake off the sting of being labeled city slickers. Madison squeezed his shoulder. "Don't let it get to you, Ty. We'll show them, somehow." They spent the next hour walking the property, checking fence lines, trying to figure out what needed fixing most. The answer, of course, was everything. The fences were full of gaps. The creek, which Buck had written about as the ranch's lifeblood, was running lower than either of them expected, barely a trickle in some spots. In the fields, the grass looked brittle and thin. They reached the barn, took a deep breath, and stepped inside. The horses stirred, ears flicking, eyes following their every move. Thunder stood by the far stall, his gray coat shining faintly in the shafts of sunlight that filtered through cracks in the roof. He watched Tyler approach, head high, nostrils flaring. Tyler tried to remember everything he'd read online the night before about handling horses. Move slowly, talk quietly, let them come to you. He held out a carrot in his open palm, heart pounding. Thunder eyed him for a moment, then turned away with a huff, as if to say, "Not impressed." Madison laughed. "He's got attitude, this one." They filled water buckets, cleaned out stalls as best they could, and fed the horses from what remained of the hay pile. Their work was clumsy, full of mistakes. Tyler managed to spill half a bucket of water down his own jeans, cursing under his breath. Madison screamed as she uncovered a wasp nest near the feed bin, sprinting from the barn with two angry insects trailing her out the door. She slapped at her arm, eyes wide. "This is not in any of the YouTube tutorials." They tried to set up a glamping tent near the creek, envisioning future guests meditating to the sound of water and wind in the trees. The instructions, in classic fashion, were missing several steps. After an hour of wrestling with poles and canvas, the wind kicked up, snapping the tent sideways. Tyler dove to grab it, only to end up tangled in nylon and rope, cursing as the whole thing collapsed on top of him. Madison doubled over laughing, tears streaming down her face. For a brief moment their exhaustion lifted, replaced by a kind of delirious joy. Their laughter faded when the weather report came on the radio, a crackling voice warning of an impending drought. "This is the driest June in 50 years, folks. Expect water restrictions, fire risk, and rising hay prices. Ranchers, take precautions." The words hit Tyler like a punch. He looked at the thin creek, the yellow grass, and felt a knot of worry settle deep inside. As the afternoon wore on, Earl returned, this time with a toolbox and a wary smile. "Heard you broke the water trough," he said. "Figured you'd need a hand?" He worked alongside Tyler, showing him how to patch the rusted metal, muttering about city folks and their soft hands. But there was a warmth to his teasing. They fixed the trough and refilled it from the creek. Earl squinted at the low water level. "This land's tough, son. It'll break you if you let it. Drought's no joke. Seen men lose everything in summers like this. Just keep your heads about you." After he left, Tyler and Madison sat on the porch, watching a thin line of clouds drift in the distance. The land was beautiful, but there was a wildness to it, something untamable. The challenges felt bigger than they'd expected, more real. Their savings were already dwindling. The horses were older, sicker than they'd planned. The house needed more repairs than they could count. Madison wrapped her arms around her knees. "Do you ever feel like we're way out of our depth? Like, what if we're making things worse?" Tyler was silent for a long moment. I don't know. I keep thinking about Buck's journal, about how he said these horses saved him. Maybe we need saving, too." The evening brought a sharp chill, the temperature dropping fast as the sun vanished behind the mountains. Tyler started a small fire in the yard, just for warmth. Madison made beans and rice over a camp stove. They ate in silence, the crackle of flames and the soft nickering of horses their only company. Later, as they tried to set up the tent again, a sudden gust of wind sent it flying into the creek, poles clattering, canvas flapping like a wounded bird. Madison burst into tears, exhaustion and frustration boiling over. "We have no idea what we're doing, Ty. We're not ranchers. We're not even close." Tyler knelt beside her, pulled her into a hug, both of them shivering in the dark. He wanted to say something that would make it better, something wise. But all he could manage was, "I know, but we're here. We're trying. That has to count for something, right?" She nodded into his shoulder, wiping her face. "I hope so." The horses gathered near the fence, drawn by the warmth of the fire, or maybe just curious about their new caretakers. Thunder stood apart, head high, watching the two of them with eyes that seemed to see everything. Madison sniffed, managed a weak smile. "Tomorrow, we try again." Above them, the sky was endless, the stars sharp and cold. The wind carried the promise of hard days ahead, but for now, they clung to each other, and the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, they could survive whatever storms Montana had in store. By the fourth day, the initial adrenaline had faded, replaced by exhaustion and a growing sense of unease. Willow Creek Ranch, for all its wild beauty, was relentless. Every sunrise brought more chores, more unexpected repairs, and more reminders of how little Tyler and Madison really knew about rural life. Their bodies ached in new places, shoulders from hauling water, knees from kneeling on the barn's rough planks, backs stiff from shoveling muck and wrangling stubborn fence posts. Thunder watched their efforts with quiet skepticism, his wise old eyes following every blunder. Earl had dropped by twice, always with a reason. Once to deliver extra nails, once to grumble about amateur haystacking. But Madison could tell he was keeping an eye on them, maybe waiting for the moment they'd call it quits. That morning, Tyler shuffled through a week's worth of unopened mail he'd collected from the old rusty box by the roadside. He'd almost thrown out a thick white envelope stamped Urgent, County Assessor, thinking it was just another ad. But something about it nagged at him. He tore it open as Madison spread peanut butter on toast in the kitchen. His hands trembled when he read the first line. Maddie, you better look at this. She wiped her fingers on her jeans, took the paper. Her eyes scanned the print, mouth tightening with each line. Notice of property tax delinquency. Outstanding balance. $8,000. Penalty accruing. Immediate payment required. I thought we paid everything at closing, Tyler said, voice cracking. They said the title was clear. Madison shook her head, staring at the official seal. Apparently, Buck hadn't paid taxes for years. If we don't cover it soon, we'll get hit with even more penalties. Or worse, a lien. We don't have that kind of money just sitting around, Ty. Tyler dropped into a kitchen chair, head in his hands. His mind raced through their dwindling savings, the spreadsheet they'd built for renovations. This bill would wipe out what was left. A sharp knock at the door jolted them both. Madison peeked out and nearly tripped over herself. Two young women stood on the porch, dressed in matching windbreakers embroidered with Pine Valley Resort. One handed Madison a glossy brochure. Hi, I'm Cindy from Pine Valley, just up the road. Our grand opening is this Saturday, and we're inviting all our lovely neighbors. There'll be helicopter tours, a celebrity chef pop-up, and a champagne brunch. The brochure was heavy with photos, infinity pools, spa treatments, horseback rides led by men in perfectly pressed Wranglers. Madison forced a smile, thanked them, and closed the door. She turned to Tyler, waving the brochure. You've got to be kidding me. Pine Valley was everything Willow Creek wasn't. Polished, luxurious, professionally staffed, and backed by the deep pockets of a resort chain. As Madison scrolled through the resort's Instagram, her mood soured. Their DIY glamping tent, collapsed and muddy, looked pathetic compared to Pine Valley's cowboy chic suites with Wi-Fi, heated floors, and mountain views. How are we supposed to compete with this? She muttered, anger coloring her words. Tyler didn't answer. He was still staring at the tax bill. Their day unraveled from there. A call to the local contractor, Jerry, brought more bad news. The plumbing issues were worse than expected. The well needed a new pump, and the roof would require at least $15,000 if they wanted to avoid leaks come winter. By late afternoon, the weight of it all pressed down hard. They tried to work, Madison mending fences, Tyler hauling feed, but neither could shake the sense that they were losing ground, fast. Dinner was quiet, tension thick between them. As the sun set, painting the sky in orange and gold, Madison finally broke the silence. Maybe we should just call it Ty, cut our losses, sell the place, go back to San Francisco. At least, there, we know what we're doing. Tyler felt the words like a slap. So that's it? We run at the first real setback? I thought we were in this together. Madison bristled, voice rising. We are. But you're acting like we can just grit our way through everything, and that's not how the real world works. We're in over our heads, and if we're not careful, we're going to lose everything, including whatever's left of our friendship. Tyler's face hardened. So, now I'm the problem? I gave up everything for this. For us. And you're ready to walk away because it's hard? Is that it? Madison stood, pushing back from the table. Don't twist my words, Tyler. I'm scared, okay? I'm tired of pretending we have it all figured out. No one has it all figured out, Tyler snapped, fists clenched. But we can't just quit every time something hurts. The argument ricocheted through the little farmhouse. Old resentments surfaced, missed birthdays, forgotten phone calls, the unspoken competition that had always simmered between them since college. For the first time since arriving, the ranch felt cold, alien, full of shadows. Madison stormed out onto the porch, slamming the screen door behind her. Tyler sat at the table, his breath ragged, the tax bill crumpled in his hand. A sense of failure gnawed at him, louder than even his anger. Outside, Madison wiped her eyes, the air sharp with the promise of rain. She looked out at the pastures, the horses grazing in the dusk, the battered fences and empty barn. Why did I ever think I could do this? She heard a noise, turned, and saw Thunder watching her from the fence. He stood, unmoving, mane stirring in the breeze. She walked over, hands shaking. The horse didn't back away. Instead, he reached his nose over the rail, exhaling warm breath against her palm. For a moment she let herself cry, silent tears disappearing into his coarse hair. Back inside, Tyler stared at Buck's journal, words blurring on the page. He flipped to the final entry again. Don't let them down. He wasn't sure if Buck meant the horses, the land, or just the act of not giving up. Madison returned, quiet now, sat across from him at the table. Her voice was soft, raw. I don't want to fight. I don't know how much more I have left, Ty. Tyler swallowed hard, reaching for her hand. I get it. I do. But let's not give up on each other. Not yet. They sat together in silence, the weight of the day settling over them. The ranch was silent, save for the distant sound of a coyote calling from the far hills. Neither knew what tomorrow would bring. Only that something had to change, and soon, or the dream they'd risked everything for would slip away forever. As night fell, the storm broke, rain lashing the tin roof, thunder echoing across the empty fields. The cracks in their partnership were out in the open now, raw and real, but somewhere beneath it, a fragile hope remained, that with the dawn they might still find a way forward. The next morning dawned heavy and gray, the air thick with the promise of a storm. Madison woke first, listening to the rain as it tapped a restless rhythm against the tin roof. She lay still, memories of last night's argument tumbling through her mind, each word replaying in the early light. She heard Tyler's footsteps on the creaking stairs, the weight of exhaustion in every sound. For a moment, she wanted to pretend it had all been a bad dream. The tax bill, the fight, the growing list of problems. But when she opened her eyes, reality waited. Thunder rolled in the distance, echoing through the empty rooms. She found Tyler in the kitchen, staring into a chipped mug of coffee, his face drawn. He didn't look up as she entered, but his hand tightened around the cup. Morning, Madison said, voice barely above a whisper. Her throat felt raw, her heart heavy. Tyler nodded, still silent. The awkwardness between them was a living thing, pressing in from all sides. The storm outside built slowly, clouds churning overhead. The wind rose, rattling the windows and moaning through the broken porch screen. By noon, the sky had turned a bruised purple, and the temperature dropped as if the world was holding its breath. They tried to go about their chores, keeping to opposite sides of the house, avoiding conversation. Madison checked on the horses, her boots sinking in muddy grass. She counted all 8, lingering a little longer by Thunder's stall. He watched her with his wise, patient eyes, head low. She stroked his neck, trying to find comfort in the familiar shape of his bones. We're going to figure this out, she promised, though her voice trembled with doubt. I just wish I knew how. The first hailstones hit with a sharp metallic rattle, bouncing off the barn's roof and rolling across the yard. Tyler, outside trying to secure the tarps over their half-finished glamping tents, looked up as the wind picked up, whipping rain sideways. The sky unleashed its fury. In minutes, the storm was upon them. Hailstones the size of marbles pummeled the tents, shattering poles and ripping through canvas. The new fire pit was buried under ice, the ground turning white in seconds. Tyler tried to shield the last tent, shouting, "Madison, help me!" But the noise swallowed his voice. Madison raced out, slipping in the mud, hair plastered to her face. Together, they fought against the wind, hands numb, faces stung raw by flying ice. The tents collapsed one by one, frames snapping, fabric torn to ribbons. Thunder and the other horses whinnied in panic, huddling together in the farthest stall. The storm raged for almost an hour, the noise deafening, nature's anger unleashed with a violence neither of them had ever seen. When the hail finally stopped, silence fell, thick and absolute. The ranch looked like a war zone. Broken tent poles jutted from the ground, tarps and fabric tangled in the fence lines. The garden was flattened, their tools scattered and buried in icy slush. Tyler stared at the wreckage, breath coming in short, cold bursts. Madison dropped to her knees, mud soaking through her jeans. "It's all gone," she whispered, voice barely audible over the drip of melting ice. "Everything we worked for?" They huddled in the barn, shivering, trying to comfort the horses and themselves. Dr. Keller stopped by in the late afternoon, her pickup crawling through the ruts. She checked the horses, nodded grimly at Thunder's swollen leg, arthritis flaring up from the cold and stress. She handed Madison another bill, her eyes kind but apologetic. "I wish I could do more," she said softly, "but this is going to get expensive." When the last traces of the storm faded, Tyler surveyed the damage. The glamping tents were unsalvageable. He checked their insurance policy, hope rising briefly, only to discover a clause in fine print. Coverage for personal use only. No commercial structures covered unless approved in advance. Their claim was denied before it was even filed. The numbers circled in his mind. $15,000 in damages, $8,000 still owed in back taxes, almost nothing left in the bank. The dream of a healing retreat, a place where tech burnout could be cured by sunsets and horses, felt impossibly distant now. Madison sat on the porch steps that night, head in her hands, the ruined tents strewn across the field. Tyler sat beside her, the silence so heavy it was hard to breathe. Every failure, every lost dollar, every old wound between them hovered in the darkness. Madison's phone buzzed. She'd set it near the window, hoping for a signal. There was one unread email from a realtor in Bozeman responding to her late-night inquiry about selling Willow Creek Ranch. She stared at the screen, the words blurring. She hadn't planned to go this far. She'd sent the message after the fight, after the tax bill, after the storm, just to see if there was a way out. Now the reply was real. Numbers, contacts, even an estimate for a quick sale, though much less than they'd hoped. She glanced at Tyler, guilt burning hot in her chest. He was staring out into the night, lost in thought. She wanted to tell him, to confess, but the words caught. The storm had left more than physical wreckage. It had widened the crack between them, letting secrets fester. Tyler found her email thread the next morning, searching for the insurance policy on her laptop. The screen was open, the subject line plain. Listing Willow Creek Ranch, potential sale. For a moment, time stopped. He stared, numb, at the messages. Madison's words, her doubts, the real estate agent's reply. He closed the laptop, heart pounding, a sick heat rising up his neck. When Madison came into the kitchen, he didn't look up. "You were just going to sell behind my back?" he said, his voice dangerously quiet. Madison froze, blood draining from her face. "Ty, I was scared. I wasn't really." "Save it," Tyler cut her off. "After everything we've been through, you couldn't even talk to me first? I thought we were a team." Madison's eyes filled with tears, her voice shaking. "I didn't want to hurt you, Ty. I didn't know what else to do." "So you went behind my back? You gave up on us, on everything, without even telling me?" Madison's anger flared through the shame. "You think you're the only one who's hurting? I'm drowning here, Tyler. Every day, it feels like we're slipping further, and I can't carry it alone." They stood on opposite sides of the kitchen, pain and accusation sharp as knives between them. The horses were silent. The storm outside had passed, but inside it raged on. For the first time since leaving California, Tyler wondered if they'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. If this, the broken trust, the shattered dreams, the endless struggle, was all that was left for them at Willow Creek Ranch. Outside, Thunder stood in the muddy yard, the wind tugging at his mane. He watched the house with ancient eyes, waiting, patient as the mountains, as if he'd seen it all before. Inside, the air was thick with words unspoken, wounds unhealed, the uncertain dawn of what would come next. Night fell. Tyler slept on the couch, Madison alone in the bedroom. The ranch creaked and settled, battered but still standing, holding its secrets in the darkness. Somewhere in the quiet, hope flickered, small, battered, not yet gone. But both Tyler and Madison felt, for the first time, how close they were to losing everything, not just the ranch, but each other. Dawn broke cold and blue over Willow Creek Ranch, the fields glistening with the last patches of hail, the air tinged with a brittle stillness. The night had been long. Tyler woke alone on the creaky living room couch, stiff-backed, his mind fogged with dreams of losing the ranch, Madison everything. He lay there for a while, listening to the wind and the eaves, trying to piece together what was salvageable of the land, the business, their friendship. The house was quiet. Madison's door was closed. The kitchen felt foreign, like a place he'd only ever visited in another life. He brewed coffee, every small action deliberate, afraid that any sudden movement might make things worse. The weight of last night's argument pressed on him. Guilt, anger, fear, and loss circled like crows. He knew he should say something, anything. But what words could fix a crack this deep? The ranch, though battered, was already demanding their attention. Thunder and the other horses called out from the barn, their voices ragged but urgent. The destruction from the hailstorm was everywhere. Shredded canvas, flattened vegetable beds, water pooling in muddy ruts. It was clear they'd lost thousands in gear and supplies. Tyler took a shaky breath, grabbed his boots, and stepped into the cold light. He didn't see Madison at first. She was outside, already working, a shovel in hand, clearing broken tent poles and debris from the shed's collapsed roof. Her movements were mechanical, her face set. Tyler hesitated, unsure if he should approach, but the need for work overrode everything else. They worked side by side in silence. Every sound felt loud, the scrape of metal on wood, the crunch of glass, the steady rhythm of breath. There was no anger in their silence, only exhaustion, a resignation that bordered on defeat. They tossed ruined gear into a growing pile, barely speaking. Thunder watched them from the far side of the fence, his coat dusted silver by the morning frost. When Tyler shifted a chunk of rotted wood near the collapsed shed, his shovel struck something hard, a dull clang that didn't belong in the earth. He knelt, brushing away damp hay and mud, until his hands found the edge of a small metal box, rusted but still whole. He glanced at Madison. There's something here. She knelt beside him, wiping sweat and dirt from her forehead. They pried open the box together, the hinges groaning in protest. Inside, bundled in faded blue ribbons, were a stack of yellowed documents and photos. On top lay a certificate with a gold seal. Thunder's Rodeo Championship, Billings, Montana, 2015, first place, quarter horse reining. Underneath were AQHA registration papers, proof of Thunder's bloodline, scrawled signatures, official stamps. There were also snapshots. Thunder in his prime, all muscle and fire. Buck Morrison beaming, holding the championship buckle. An old news clipping with the headline, Willow Creek's Thunder wins $50,000 grand prize. Madison stared at the photos, stunned. He was a champion. I mean, we knew, but $50,000. That's crazy. Tyler flipped through the papers, his hands trembling. The registration listed Thunder's pedigree in careful script, a bloodline traced to legendary stock. He whistled softly, hope and disbelief warring inside. If his line is still valued, Thunder might be worth more than the whole ranch. They carried the box to the porch and sat together, knees almost touching, letting the realization sink in. Tyler reached for his phone, remembered the spotty service, and instead ran inside to dig out his laptop. Miraculously, one bar of cell signal flickered on the kitchen table. He tethered his phone, searched for Thunder's bloodline, and scrolled through listings on horse trader websites, forum threads, AQHA results. "Oh my God," Madison whispered, eyes wide. "There's a colt from Thunder's sire selling for 80 grand in Texas, someone in Arizona's offering 75 for an older gelding just because he's out of that same bloodline." Tyler read quietly, a lump in his throat. For a moment, the fatigue, the anger, the sense of loss, all of it fell away, replaced by a fragile, disbelieving hope. Could this be it? Their way out? But then, as quickly as it came, the old skepticism returned. "It can't be this easy," Tyler said, voice rough. "There's always a catch. We'd need to verify his health, update the paperwork, maybe train him again. I mean, even if he's valuable, he's old. Who pays that kind of money for a retired rodeo horse?" Madison looked at him, a faint smile breaking through the exhaustion. "People pay for legends, Ty. For hope. For a piece of something that matters." They sat together, flipping through photos, reading Buck's handwritten notes. In one entry, Buck wrote about Thunder's spirit, his determination, the way he refused to be broken, no matter how tough the world became. "He saved me more times than I can count. Don't ever let money make you forget what matters." Madison traced the words with her finger. "What do we do now?" Tyler exhaled, the decision weighing heavy. "We don't rush. We look at every option, sell him, pay off our debts, or maybe, just maybe, find another way. But at least we have a shot." That afternoon, with the box and its secrets between them, Tyler and Madison fell into a cautious peace. The silence was still there, but it had changed. It was less about anger, more about uncertainty. They both felt the old friendship stirring again, a fragile thread holding them together. Madison made sandwiches, her hands steadier now. Tyler called Dr. Keller, updating her on Thunder's history, asking what it would take to prepare him for a possible sale or even a return to training. The vet listened carefully, then promised to come by for another checkup. "Just remember," she warned, "money's not everything. Horses get attached. So do people." They spent the rest of the day tending to the herd, cleaning stalls, gently brushing Thunder's coat. The champion, for all his scars and aches, stood calmly under their hands, his head lowered, his eyes half closed. Madison leaned her head against his shoulder. "You're a good boy, aren't you, Thunder?" As the sun set, painting the fields in gold and blue, Tyler and Madison sat on the porch steps, the metal box between them. The bitterness of the last few days still lingered, but now it mingled with hope. A dangerous, exhilarating hope. They were far from saved. The house still needed repairs. The tax bill wasn't going away. Their friendship was still raw. But for the first time since the hailstorm, there was a way forward, even if it was uncertain. "If this works," Madison whispered, "maybe everything we've been through, maybe it meant something after all." Tyler watched the shadows lengthen across the ranch. In the quiet, with the cool Montana wind on his face, he allowed himself to believe, just a little, just enough. Inside, Buck's journal lay open on the kitchen table, a bookmark pressed between the pages. "Don't let them down." Night crept in. Thunder stamped in the paddock, the other horses settling close. Tyler and Madison lingered outside, side by side, staring out at the battered land, the ruined tents, the barn full of stories yet to be told. In that stillness, with hope flickering on the edge of despair, Willow Creek Ranch began, slowly, stubbornly, to heal. The following day dawned bright, but carried an uneasy stillness, as if the ranch was holding its breath, waiting for what might come next. Tyler and Madison went through the motions of their chores with a new sense of purpose, but also with a nervous energy neither could quite shake. Thunder, the battered but proud champion, seemed to sense the change too. He followed them along the fence line, his steps lighter, his head higher, as if he remembered the days when crowds had cheered his name and he had run like the wind. Mid-morning, a strange pickup truck rolled up the driveway, sending gravel skittering in all directions. It was not Earl's battered Ford or Dr. Keller's clean white vet truck. The new arrival was jet black, polished to a high sheen, and bore Texas plates that caught the sun. A tall, broad-shouldered man stepped out, cowboy boots hitting the earth with practiced certainty. He wore a crisp button-down, a tooled leather belt, and a hat that shaded eyes sharp as hawks. Tyler wiped his hands on his jeans and stepped forward, Madison close behind, uncertain. "You Tyler?" the man asked, his accent unmistakably Southern, but his tone all business. "That's me, and this is Madison. Can we help you?" The man grinned, revealing a gold tooth. "Name's Jake Morrison. People call me Big Money down in Amarillo. I buy, breed, and sell the best quarter horses from Texas to Montana, and I've been tracking Thunder's bloodline for years." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "Heard through the grapevine there might be a champion out here looking for a new home." Madison exchanged a wary glance with Tyler. "We haven't decided anything yet," she said, keeping her voice steady. Jake's eyes glinted, catching the uncertainty. "I get it. Y'all been through a rough patch. I've seen the news about that freak hailstorm. This land's got a rep for breaking the tough ones. But I also know a golden opportunity when I see one." He walked the paddock, boots crunching on gravel. Thunder watched him approach, ears pricked forward, nostrils flaring as if he remembered men like Jake from another life. Jake let the horse sniff his hand, then scratched behind Thunder's ear with the confidence of someone who'd handled hundreds of animals. "He's still got fire, this old boy," Jake said. "Maybe not for the big arenas anymore, but his bloodline's worth every penny. Breeders will pay top dollar for a horse like him, even if he never runs another circuit." Jake turned back to them, all swagger and charm. "I'll make you a straight offer. 75 grand, cash. I'll wire it tomorrow. No inspections, no haggle. But I need an answer by sundown tomorrow. Or I walk." The offer hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and impossible to ignore. Tyler's mind raced. That kind of money would save the ranch. It would pay the tax bill, fix the roof, even put something back in savings. It could mean the difference between starting over or giving up for good. Madison stared at Jake, then at Thunder. She saw, all at once, the path that money could buy, the stress and fear evaporating, the long nights of worry traded for relief. But there was another vision, too. Thunder alone in a strange barn, his days spent as a stud, or worse, passed from owner to owner until his legend faded into nothing but a name on a page. Jake pulled a business card from his pocket, pressed it into Tyler's hand. "I'm staying at the hotel in town. Don't take too long. Folks like me don't wait around." He tipped his hat and strode back to his truck, peeling off in a spray of gravel, leaving Tyler and Madison staring at the dust. They stood in silence for a long moment, the wind tugging at their hair, the sound of the horses in the paddock the only reminder of the world moving on. "It's a lot of money," Madison said quietly. More than we ever thought possible." "It's everything," Tyler replied, the words tasting like defeat. But the decision, once so simple in its logic, proved complicated the longer they thought about it. Madison sat at the kitchen table, calculator and notepad in hand, running the numbers again and again. Each time she reached the same conclusion. Selling Thunder would fix almost everything. It was the clean exit strategy. Pay off the debts, cover the repairs, maybe even buy a plane ticket back to California with something left over. Tyler, meanwhile, wandered out to the barn where Thunder stood in the shade. He rested his forehead against the horse's neck, feeling the slow, steady thump of the old gelding's heartbeat. "What do we do, boy?" Tyler whispered. "Are we just supposed to let you go?" Thunder nuzzled his shoulder, warm breath sending shivers down Tyler's spine. The moment stretched, quiet but powerful. For Tyler, it was a moment of clarity. All the worry, the shame, the fear, it all faded under the simple comfort of being near the horse that had, in some mysterious way, become family. As the day wore on, the ranch seemed to lean into the uncertainty. Earl stopped by, heard the story, and grunted. I know Jake. He's got deep pockets and a good reputation, but he's a businessman first. You sell to him, that horse is gone for good. You keep him. You better have a plan. The pressure built as the sun slid lower in the sky. Tyler and Madison barely spoke, each lost in their own thoughts, haunted by what selling Thunder would mean. Tyler saw his father's disappointed face, heard his old colleagues' voices, their judgments about failure. Madison thought of her own parents, the years of sacrifice, the hope that one day she'd do something meaningful, not just profitable. Dinner was a tense affair, the kind where every sound seemed louder, every gesture more fragile. At one point, Madison pushed her plate away, stood, and walked outside, the screen door banging behind her. Tyler found her in the fading light, standing by the fence where Thunder grazed. I keep thinking about what Buck wrote, she said, voice small. Don't let them down. I don't think he just meant the horses. I think he meant us too. If we sell Thunder, we're giving up the only thing that's really worked here. The one thing that's made this place feel like home. Tyler took a deep breath, every muscle tense. But if we don't, Maddie, we might lose everything. We could end up back in the city, broke, with nothing but regrets. She turned to him, tears glistening in her eyes. Then we start over again. That's what people do, right? We get knocked down, we get up, we find another way. They stood together, the last light of the sun warming their faces. Thunder ambled over, pushing his head between them, nuzzling their hands. A decision hung in the air, raw and unsaid. Madison rested her forehead against Thunder's, whispering, You're not just an asset. You're family. We're not selling you. Tyler nodded, relief and guilt mingling. He looked up at the big Montana sky, stars just beginning to appear. We'll figure it out, Maddie. We have to. Inside, the business card from Jake Morrison sat on the counter, untouched. Tomorrow, they would tell him no. And somehow, they would find a way to save Willow Creek Ranch. And themselves. Without selling out the one soul who had saved them when they needed it most. Night fell gentle and cool. Hope and fear entwined. In the stillness, Thunder stood guard, a living legend beneath a blanket of stars, and inside the battered farmhouse, Tyler and Madison finally slept a little easier, holding on to the fragile, stubborn belief that some things were worth more than money, and that their story, like Thunder's, was far from over. Tyler barely slept that night. He tossed and turned, mind spinning with doubt, numbers, and a gnawing ache that even $75,000 couldn't fix. In the dim light before dawn, he rose, dressed, and padded quietly into the kitchen. Madison was already there, sitting at the table with Buck Morrison's journal, her eyes red but resolute. The ranch was silent except for the low rumble of Thunder's hooves as he moved restlessly in the paddock. They didn't say much. Words were brittle, and the decision, though spoken, felt both right and terrifying. After a quick breakfast, Tyler scrawled a note on the back of Jake Morrison's business card. Thanks, but Thunder is not for sale. He placed it on the mantel and left it there, like a line in the sand. Outside, the air was crisp, carrying the promise of summer, but edged with the threat of drought. As the sun broke over the hills, Tyler went to the barn to check on Thunder. The old horse greeted him with a gentle nudge, eyes bright, muscles a little less stiff, thanks to Dr. Keller's new regimen. Tyler rubbed Thunder's neck, whispering, We're going to make it, big guy. One way or another. Later that morning, Madison called Jake. Her hands shook as she dialed. He picked up after one ring, voice smooth and expectant. Morning, Miss Madison. I take it you've got an answer for me. We do, Madison said, her voice clear even as her heart hammered. We're keeping Thunder. He's not just a horse to us. He's family. I hope you understand. There was a pause on the line. Then Jake let out a low whistle. I get it, ma'am. Sometimes keeping what matters costs more than money. If you ever change your mind, you know how to reach me. When she hung up, relief swept through her. Quick, bittersweet, edged with worry. She didn't know if she'd just made the bravest or most foolish decision of her life. They spent the day cleaning up after the storm, repairing what they could. The loss of the glamping tent still stung, but every shovel of mud, every plank hammered back into place, felt like reclaiming a piece of hope. Earl stopped by, leaning on the fence, watching as Tyler wrangled a warped board back into shape. Heard you turn Jake down, Earl said, his eyes crinkling at the edges. Tyler nodded, expecting the old rancher to scold him for missing a lifeline. Instead, Earl just shrugged. Good. If I'd sold my best horse when the going got tough, I'd have regretted it every day after. You did right by Thunder. Just don't let it go to waste. That evening, the air was thick and blue with dusk. Madison sat on the porch with Buck's journal, flipping to a page she hadn't read before. Tyler joined her, sliding close as she read aloud. Buck had written about his return from Vietnam, about the nightmares that clung to him long after the shooting stopped. He wrote about how the horses were the only thing that calmed him, how caring for them, trusting them, forced him out of his own mind and into the present. There was a passage about equine therapy, about broken soldiers healing in the company of patient, powerful animals. Sometimes, Buck wrote, all a man needs is a quiet moment and a gentle soul who doesn't judge him. Madison closed the journal, her thoughts tumbling in 100 directions. The glow of her phone screen caught Tyler's attention. He watched as she scrolled through old emails, job listings, half-finished business plans, the failed glamping concept, the debts. You know, she said, her voice quiet but steady. I think Buck was onto something. All this time we've been trying to build something fancy. Glamping tents, marketing to influencers, trying to be Pine Valley Resort. But what if our story, the real one, about burnout, about healing, what if that's what matters? Tyler frowned, thinking. You mean like a retreat? For people like us? Tech workers? Folks burned out and lost? Exactly, Madison said, her voice rising with excitement. Corporate detox retreats. Not just spa days, but real healing. Let them unplug. Let them muck stalls, feed horses, breathe for once. If Thunder can save us, why not others? The idea bloomed between them, wild and improbable, and, suddenly, utterly possible. They talked late into the night, sketching ideas on the backs of envelopes, imagining what a program might look like. There would be no luxury suites, no infinity pools, just honesty, sweat, and the quiet comfort of horses. People could come for a week, learn to let go of their screens, their deadlines, their need to always be on. They'd find silence, hard work, and maybe, if they were lucky, a little of themselves again. As they planned, old doubts crept in. Would anyone come? Could they get licensed, insured, equipped? How would they reach people, cover costs, build trust? We'll start small, Madison said, determination in her eyes. One guest at a time. Word of mouth. Let the results speak for themselves. If it worked for us, it can work for others. That night, Tyler couldn't sleep. He stood in the doorway of the barn, watching Thunder and the other horses move quietly in the dark, the sky alive with 1,000 stars. He remembered those endless nights at Meta, the cold blue glow of his monitor, the constant pressure to do more, be more. It had nearly broken him. Out here, for all the hardship, he felt alive. Uncertain, yes, but present, real. He thought about all the friends he'd left behind in Silicon Valley, people with haunted eyes and shallow breaths, whose lives ran on caffeine and code. Maybe they would come. Maybe they'd find what he and Madison had found, a kind of peace that couldn't be bought. The next morning, Tyler and Madison drafted a plan. They reached out to old contacts, tech workers, therapists, even Madison's former manager. They spent hours cleaning the ranch house, clearing a guest room, making space for the first test client. Tyler built a simple website with shaky Wi-Fi, sharing their story, Buck's words, and photos of thunder. They poured every bit of hope and honesty into it, refusing to dress it up as something it wasn't. They didn't expect the first booking to come so quickly. 3 days later, an email landed in Madison's inbox. The sender, David Lynn, Tyler's old manager at Meta. The very same man who had denied him his last promotion. The message was brief, but raw. Burned out, lost, need a break. I'll be there next week. Madison and Tyler looked at each other, fear and excitement warring in their eyes. The moment was real now. They would have to deliver to show that what saved them could save others. Madison gripped Tyler's hand. This is it, Ty. No more running. No more hiding. We're ready, he said, even as his heart thudded in his chest. Outside, thunder grazed in the dawn, strong and steady, a living testament to second chances. Willow Creek Ranch, battered but standing, was alive with purpose again. And for the first time in months, Tyler and Madison allowed themselves to dream, not of escape, but of meaning, healing, and a new kind of future, born not from money or glory, but from courage, brokenness, and the willingness to choose a different path. Willow Creek Ranch stirred early on the day their first guest was set to arrive. Tyler was awake before the sunrise, staring at the ceiling, the weight of anticipation pressing on his chest. He'd read David Lynn's email at least a dozen times. The thought of seeing his old boss, the same man who'd delivered 3 consecutive promotion rejections, the same man whose judgment Tyler had feared and resented, filled him with a strange mix of anxiety, pride, and an odd, vengeful hope. This time, David wouldn't be coming to judge his code, but to look for healing in a place Tyler and Madison had built from nothing but desperation and grit. By 6, Tyler was already moving through the ranch, checking on the horses, brushing out Thunder's coat until it shone in the pale morning light. Madison had transformed the guest room, scrubbing away years of dust, setting out clean linens, a pitcher of water, a stack of simple welcome cards with handwritten notes. Breathe. Rest. The world will wait. They debated how much to sell their story. Should they lean into the tech-to-ranch redemption arc, or let the land and the horses speak for themselves? In the end, Madison settled on honesty. She wrote a letter to David, leaving it on the nightstand. We're not therapists. We're not a luxury resort. We're just 2 people who know what it feels like to lose yourself in the grind and find your way back, one sunrise at a time. Let the horses teach you what they taught us. Tyler was still rehearsing what he'd say to David when a dusty Subaru pulled up the drive. The car looked out of place here, like a city kid lost at a rodeo. David stepped out, looking smaller than Tyler remembered. His shirt was rumpled, eyes bloodshot, jaw covered with a day's worth of stubble. He scanned the ranch, taking in the battered fences, the patched-up barn, the open sky. For a moment, Tyler felt the old fear, the instinct to measure himself against his former boss's expectations. But then, seeing David, not the manager, but the man, Tyler felt something loosen inside. He waved. Hey, Dave, welcome to Willow Creek. David nodded, eyes darting everywhere, as if unsure where to rest. Tyler, this is different from the office, huh? That's the point, Madison said with a half smile, appearing at Tyler's side. Come on in, we'll get you settled. Inside, David looked around, as if searching for something to anchor himself. I gotta be honest. I almost turned around 3 times on the way here. Madison set her hand gently on his arm. You're here now. That's the hard part. The next hours passed in a blur of small, careful steps. Madison showed David to his room, handed him Buck's journal, suggested he write a few lines if he felt like it. Tyler brought him coffee, gave him a tour of the paddocks, introduced him to each horse by name. Thunder, as always, was the main event. David approached the old champion with trepidation, one hand extended, his other arm hugging his own chest. "Never been around horses much," David admitted, shifting nervously as Thunder snuffled his palm. "They don't care about your job title," Tyler said, a wry smile on his lips. Just be honest with them. And yourself." That first day, David barely spoke. He followed Tyler and Madison through chores, mucked stalls, carried water buckets, and brushed the horses in silence. He flinched when the horses nudged him, fumbled with the halter, and winced at the smell of manure. By evening, he looked ready to give up, shoulders slumped, eyes haunted. After dinner, the three of them sat on the porch. The silence was heavy, broken only by the soft nickering of horses and the chirr of insects. David stared at his hands. "I haven't slept in months," he admitted. "My head never stops. Emails, deadlines, noise. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore." Tyler remembered the panic attacks, the choking fear in Meta's open office, and felt a wave of empathy. "You're not alone, Dave. Not here." The next morning, something changed. David rose early, before even Madison, and was already in the barn by sunrise, clumsily feeding Thunder. The old horse tolerated him, bumping his shoulder until David laughed, a rough, surprised sound. Madison watched from the doorway, her eyes shining. As the days passed, a slow transformation began. The man who had arrived tight-wound and hollow-eyed now moved with more ease. He talked, first about trivial things, then about life, about the pressure to perform, about his failing marriage, his fear of disappointing his children. Madison listened, never judging, sometimes sharing her own stories of exhaustion and loss. Tyler saw, with a strange sense of satisfaction, how David softened around the horses. He learned to curry their coats, read their moods, move with their rhythms. He stopped checking his phone, stopped talking about work. He started listening. On the third day, something remarkable happened. Madison suggested David try leading Thunder through a simple obstacle course in the pasture. Just poles on the ground, a few cones, nothing dramatic. David hesitated, but Tyler encouraged him, walking at his side. Halfway through, Thunder balked, refusing to move forward. David stood, frozen. Tyler watched the struggle play out, not between man and horse, but within David himself. "You can't force him," Madison said gently. "You have to let go. Trust him, and he'll trust you." David took a shaky breath, loosened the lead, and waited. After a long moment, Thunder stepped forward, slow and steady. David's shoulders sagged with relief. He finished the course, then knelt beside the horse, arms wrapped around Thunder's neck, tears streaming down his cheeks. Later, as the three of them sat by the fire pit, David said, "I don't know what happened back there. I just let go, and he was there for me." Tyler smiled, feeling something deep settle in his chest. "That's the magic, Dave. They meet you where you are." On David's last day, the ranch felt alive in a new way. He helped muck stalls, fed the horses, even laughed as he chased a runaway chicken through the yard. At breakfast, he handed Madison a letter, a thank you, but also a confession. "I thought I was coming here to hide from my life. Instead, I found the courage to live it." As David loaded his car to leave, he hugged Madison, then Tyler, lingering a moment longer with Thunder, who seemed to understand. "You saved me," Dave said, voice thick. "Both of you. I'll never forget it." As the Subaru disappeared down the dusty road, Madison leaned into Tyler's side, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. "We did it," she whispered. "It actually worked." Tyler wrapped his arm around her, looking out at the wide Montana sky. For the first time, Willow Creek Ranch felt not just like home, but like the answer to a question he'd never known how to ask. That evening, as the sun dropped behind the hills, a notification pinged on Tyler's laptop. An email from an old friend in the valley. "Heard about what you're doing out there. Any chance you have room for one more? The healing, it seemed, was just beginning. And as night fell, the ranch glowed with new life, the life that comes from letting go, from trusting the journey, and from finding hope where you least expect it. A soft Montana sunrise crept over the rolling fields, painting the battered fences in the once ruined barn in hues of gold and lavender. Willow Creek Ranch seemed almost to exhale in the quiet. It was the breath of a place that had survived, transformed, and somehow, against all odds, come alive again. Inside the house, Tyler poured 2 mugs of coffee, savoring the easy quiet. For the first time in a long while, the tension in his shoulders was gone. He carried 1 mug to the porch, where Madison sat bundled in a blanket, the air still chilly before the sun fully warmed the land. She accepted the coffee with a grateful smile, her eyes drifting over the fields where Thunder and the others grazed. The herd looked healthy, content, and alive in the cool morning. For a moment, neither spoke. They simply watched the world wake up, listening to the distant calls of birds and the soft shuffle of hooves in dew-soaked grass. After everything, the fights, the storms, the heartbreak, and failure, there was peace. Madison let out a deep breath she hadn't known she was holding. "You think it'll last?" she murmured, barely louder than the wind. "I don't know," Tyler answered. "But I think we're ready, no matter what comes next." The ranch was no longer silent. It was alive with new routines, new laughter, new hope. Word had spread from David Lynn's visit faster than either of them could have imagined. 2 days after he left, they'd received another inquiry, this one from a startup founder in Seattle whose email was raw with anxiety and longing for rest. Then came a nurse from Denver, a married couple from Silicon Valley, and more, each with their own scars, their own desperate hope for a fresh start. They couldn't afford much advertising, but it didn't matter. Their honesty, the story of tech refugees turning to the land and horses for healing, had taken on a life of its own. A few Instagram posts from early guests, some word of mouth in the right Slack channels, and suddenly, Willow Creek Ranch was full. Not with influencers seeking a photo op, but with real people seeking something true. With each new arrival, Madison and Tyler grew more confident. They set up simple schedules, morning chores, group meals, afternoons spent with the horses, evenings by the fire pit, or reading Buck Morrison's weather journal. Guests shared their stories, sometimes hesitantly, sometimes with tears, sometimes in fits of laughter and relief. Each one found solace in the slow rhythm of ranch life, the honest labor, and the silent wisdom of Thunder and his companions. One afternoon, while Tyler taught a guest how to muck stalls, his phone pinged with an unfamiliar area code. He stepped away to answer, expecting a booking or perhaps a call from Earl. Instead, it was a reporter from Outside Magazine, voice crisp and enthusiastic. "We've heard about your unique approach to tech burnout," the reporter said. "We'd love to do a feature, photos, interviews, the whole story. It's exactly what people need right now." Tyler was stunned. He'd expected skepticism or even mockery, not interest from a national magazine. He agreed, hesitantly at first, but the response when the article ran was overwhelming. The email inbox flooded. People asking for bookings, counselors requesting partnerships, even a representative from a major wellness company, inquiring about licensing the Willow Creek model for other retreats. One evening, a delivery truck arrived with a massive box on the porch. Inside was a hand-carved sign, a gift from David Lynn. From Code to Corral. Willow Creek Ranch, Montana. Tyler hung it over the entry gate, hands shaking with a mix of pride and disbelief. As autumn painted the hills in red and gold, the ranch settled into its new rhythm. The horses, once underfed and anxious, were now glossy and strong. Thunder had become a legend not just for his rodeo past, but for his gentle spirit, his patience with the broken and burned out. Madison started a journal of her own, filling its pages with stories of the people who came and went, the way each found something different, healing, clarity, courage to change. On weekends, Earl would drop by with homemade pies or fresh eggs, sitting on the porch and grumbling good-naturedly about city folks. Sometimes he'd share advice, sometimes just sit in silence with them, watching the sun dip below the mountains. There were still hard days, of course. The well needed repairs, the taxes still came due, and sometimes the guests brought heavy pain that lingered in the air. Tyler and Madison argued now and then, but the fights never cut as deep. The land, the horses, and the work had forged something strong between them. A partnership no longer built on desperation, but on shared purpose. One chilly October evening, as the last guest of the season sat by the fire with a mug of cocoa, Madison checked the ranch's email. Her breath caught as she read the newest message. It was from Buck Morrison's daughter, living now in New York. She wrote, "I saw your story in the magazine and recognized the ranch at once. My father would be proud to see the land alive and the horses thriving. Thank you for keeping his spirit alive. If you ever want to talk about his legacy, I'd love to visit." Madison wiped her eyes, showed Tyler the message, and together they sat on the porch, wrapped in a single blanket, feeling the circle close in the sweetest way. As the first snowflakes drifted down that night, they watched the world go quiet. Thunder nickered softly from the barn, the other horses settling in for warmth. The porch light glowed, soft and golden, as if holding back the cold. "We found it," Madison said at last, her voice a mixture of wonder and relief. "Our place, our calling." Tyler squeezed her hand. "We did. And we're home." There was no fanfare, no riches, no viral fame, just the gentle sound of horses, the laughter of guests finding hope, the Montana wind moving through the grass. Willow Creek Ranch, battered but standing, was more than a rescue. It was a beginning. As dawn broke again the next day, Madison and Tyler stood at the fence, coffee steaming in the cold air, watching Thunder lead the herd across the field. They didn't know what tomorrow would bring, only that whatever storms came, they would face them together. For in this place of broken dreams and stubborn hope, they had discovered what mattered most, that healing, like love, is found in the giving, that a new dawn can always follow the darkest night, and that sometimes the greatest journeys start with the courage to stay, to fight, and to believe against every odd that home is not a place, but something you build day by day with the ones who never let you down.